You're listening to Metal and High Heels, the official podcast from the magazine about metal, lifestyle, and entertainment.
Hello and welcome to our new Metal and High Heels episode. I'm Steffi, and today we're here back with the three of us. Pia and Kiki join me, and we will talk about music journalism.
Yes. Hey, my name is Pia. We thought about music journalism, if that is something that people really need in times of social media and bands having so many possibilities to keep in touch with their fans themselves. So, we asked ourselves the question, does the world still need music journalism?
And of course, it's a really important question to us because this is what we do here at Metal and High Heels. And this is what we've been doing since 2013, at least, as Metal and High Heels. And we were all doing that before a little bit as well.
Yes.
So how do we start even with a topic like this?
First of all, we could look at what kind of music journalism we have. So, of course, there is the classical print magazine, but over the years, also what we did and what we ourselves developed for our brands, especially for Metal 4 and now for Metal and High Heels, is also stuff in the video and audio sector. So we started very early with video interviews. When we think about what we did with Metal 4 at the Rock Hearts Festival, that was in 2012 when we did so many video interviews. And I think, at least in Germany, we were one of the first magazines who did this really, who did this regularly. So, yeah. And nowadays, there are so many people who do stuff on YouTube, not only interviewing bands, but also kind of magazines or people who just talk about their own opinion about stuff. And when we go to audio, we started this Metal and High Heels podcast in 2017. And I think since 2019 or something, many other magazines started their own podcasts too. So this is another development that we can see that audio becomes more popular again. I guess it never was so popular in the metal universe because, as I said, we had the print magazines, then we had the whole video stuff on YouTube. Yes, and now podcasts. And there are also metal documentaries. They have been around for quite a while. If we think about Sam Dunn, he did this. What is the name of the documentary again?
I think Metal Evolution or Evolution of Metal.
That
probably
was the DVD series he did, but the first thing, I think it's called Metal: A Headbanger's Journey. That was the first metal documentary that I knew, but there were so many to come after that, also from other people who did these documentaries. Can you think of other media?
No, media, definitely not, I think. Or for me, there are these three sectors you already mentioned, like print, audio, and video. And that's it. You can still the platforms on which they are released, like videos on YouTube, of course, but also print went somehow to Insta, I would say, or Instagram, for example, is a part of print media. But I think that's already another topic on which platforms or how social media is involved into music journalism. I don't know if we want to.
If we want to jump there, I think we're gonna go.
Right now.
I think we're gonna go there later.
For sure.
Yeah, we have two perspectives here because on the one hand, we are music journalists ourselves. And on the other hand, we're also the readers or the watchers, listeners, the consumers.
Yes. And while we're talking about the different categories of media, we can obviously not forget about the predecessors almost. In video or in audiovisual media, we of course had TV before.
Mhm.
We had YouTube. I did kind of grow up a little bit with the MTV part of things,
But
part of the 90s.
did they have metal magazines as well? I know they sometimes played metal music videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember a specific metal dedicated programming, but they for sure made some metal videos big, and they made them hits.
And I
And if
think
we talk about audio, we also cannot forget about radio. I don't think that here or in most of the world, we don't have that many big metal radios, but I think the US does have many radio stations only dedicated to metal. Here in Germany, I think we have kind of one, at least. So, yeah, that's, I think, also important to mention before we start going completely in the more digital direction.
I also think that at least Rock Hard magazine had this DVDs earlier, so that they put a whole thing that could have been a TV show, they put it on a DVD so that you can watch it at home. And that was kind of a music magazine TV show about metal. Yes. First question. Do you still read magazines, print or online? Or do you still read magazines, print or online?
As a whole, I would say no. I do read the rare article that calls my attention from time to time, but I couldn't think of one magazine that I check every day or read more than one article per week or per day.
Yeah, same. I know that I once also brought these print magazines at the store, but that's years ago. Also an interesting and an important point that I think that there's almost, I would say, no money in music journalism or in our small metal genre journalism, that people don't want to spend money on it. But also another topic, maybe for later. And yeah, no, same as Kiki said, I read some articles or interviews, but that's also more if the artist, him or herself, published it or shared it on social media and said, here I did a very interesting, funny interview with blah, blank, whatever. Then I check it out and read it if I'm interested in it, but not more.
If I go back about 10 years ago or even a bit more, I was a subscriber to several music magazines. And
nice.
Now I get one. I get the Fuse magazine that comes out, I think, 4 or 6 times a year. And I read a lot in this magazine also to get to know new bands. But it's not that intense as it used to be. So that, of course, changed through social media and also through other stuff that you can get your information from. That's far easier nowadays. What do you think about, well, when we talk about online magazines, most of them or maybe all of them are fanzines, at least all that I know. So the people don't get money for their work or not much. Maybe they sometimes get something to pay their costs. So some magazines might say, yeah, we pay your hotel or whatever, but they can't do this for a living. But the print magazines, at least, I would call commercial magazines because they pay at least some of their journalists. And so that's, I guess one should differ between these two, because when you're a commercial magazine, and as you already said, Steffi, readers won't really pay that much money. And the numbers, at least for the German magazines, decrease. So there are less and less readers. then you depend on the labels and stuff that buy advertisement in your magazine. And so the question is, do they still, or do they maybe not rate some albums how they would do it if they were a fanzine, because they fear that the label might not buy this advertisement anymore? What do you think?
That is a very good question. I actually also thought about it the other day, when I was thinking about what kind of sponsors do other metal podcasts have. And I was thinking, sure, labels. Labels are obviously the most logical sponsor, I think. But would that have to mean that we have to push releases on the podcast, even though we might not even listen to them? So I obviously don't know how that, what kind of policies or contracts other media have with the labels, but it's certainly something that I don't think we would want to do.
No. Especially because we don't have to make a living out of it. And I don't have so much time, so I don't want to spend my time on music that I don't like just because we have a sponsor that says you have to review the album by band XY. So I wouldn't want to do this. And if they would kind of force me to do this, I think I wouldn't rate it very high. So that would affect how I listen to the music. So yeah, it definitely would be something that I would not want to do.
No, I think it just goes against certainly my beliefs. I remember when we started the magazine, we said that we would only write about things we like.
Yeah.
And so that we can promote them honestly. And that's something that we have really stood by all these years. And oh my gosh, it's going to be 10 years in 2 years.
Wow.
Oof. And no, we've actually really stood by that and done it, and anything else would just be lying to ourselves.
Yeah, but that's why I really like fanzines, because they don't have this pressure at all. So they can say, I don't like this CD, or I don't like this band, or something like this, if they really feel like it. They never have to do something that they don't want to, so to speak.
Yeah. I also like these kinds of magazines because I think they are more into the diverse subgenres, and I think they know a little bit more about the music, I would say. But on the other hand, I don't like it if I can read it, or if I read an article and I already check that the reader is a fangirl or a fanboy. And
writer.
It's just yeah, exactly, yeah, the writer. And that's just okay, I got it. You like the band, you like the album, or whatever you're writing about. But if you have just no critic points right here and say just, oh my gosh, that's so perfect, and blah blah blah, that can be annoying. And I think that's always a negative point on fan sizes. And I also do it myself. I know that, as you already said, we are a fan size. And I know that I also do someone very too positive critics or reviews. But yeah, I know that it's not the best way. It's just I don't want, or it's better to call it a promotion text, but a review.
I don't think so, because it's still your opinion, and when you write a review, you tell other people what you think about this band or this album, and you can, or sometimes it's also not on us to say something is bad. I don't like when people say this is a bad album when they just don't like the music. It's totally fine when they say, I guess the musicians are skilled and everything, but it's just not my taste of music. So I like when people say that. And then it's, again, a very honest review. But I know what you mean when they just say, oh, the band is so cool and the album is so good, blah, blah, blah. Then, yeah, you learn basically nothing about the album at all. So that's not what should happen. There should be, the writers should be objective somehow or to a point and informative.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Exactly. For me, reviews are infotainment. I think that's a word. Because it's always interesting to read some new informations, especially if you didn't know the band before. If it's completely new to you, and then you have a very informative review. Yeah.
I want to know why they like it. If they like it and why they like it.
Oh, okay.
I totally agree with that. I think it's almost impossible to be completely objective when judging, quote unquote, music, something as emotional as music is, and art in general. So we can do our best to judge things objectively, and I do think it's actually how we have done things as well. Like you were saying, Pia. Well, this might be technically good, but I don't like it personally, right? So that's an opinion, and another opinion is obviously to analyze something within the same parameters that we do like, right? Also saying that this album is great, and sure, I'm a big fan of the band, but this album is great because of this and this and this reasons. I think that tells the quality of the writing and or review in general. But being 100% objective is not a thing. And I think it was you, Pia, who said this at some point. People read reviews or listen to reviews sometimes or a lot probably when they know or when they can relate to the author. And so if I know this author has maybe a similar taste than me, and they have already listened to a record that's not out yet and I don't have access to, and they like it or dislike it, then I know what to expect. I know if I want to buy it or nowadays, obviously, maybe listen to it first or something. Times have changed.
Yes.
But I think that is what music journalism is, or why it's so difficult.
Yes. Before we get into the different genres of music journalism, is this the right word? I could say it in German, but in English, I don't know. Another question for you. Categories, yeah, maybe that's it. Do you prefer written or print or online when it's written, or do you prefer audio, or do you prefer video when you want to inform yourself about music?
Depends on the quality, I would say. If there's bad audio and bad video quality, then I definitely prefer just text. But I think there's also nothing better than a very good filmed, high quality, also audio quality video interview or review, whatever. If it's good filmed.
I think yes. My answer is yes. I think it depends It depends, yes, a lot on the quality. I agree. I also think it depends on the concept, on the personality of the author or publisher. I think it also depends on what it is. And mostly I might do a combination. So I couldn't say that I have a favorite. I love listening to podcasts. Some videos become also just audio background. So if it's a video that's full of animation and I don't know, memes, or a reaction video, for example, where one wants to see the face of the person reacting to something, and that's also different. And sometimes the written word is just beautiful.
Yeah, same here. Depends on what I do. So when I go somewhere by car or by train, then I like listening to a podcast or something. When I am at work and need distraction, then I prefer reading because I don't want to disturb someone else. And when I am at home in the evening, I prefer YouTube because then I have the time and I am calm enough to fully concentrate on what's happening in the video.
What? That's impressive. My attention span is bad now.
So I like that we have this different kind of, and I hope that print doesn't disappear because I also like that you can do it. You can always read something, or not when you're driving by car, obviously, but most of the time it's possible to read something somewhere. So you don't need much to do this.
That is true. And that's also nice that you say so, because there is this kind of coincidence. I don't know how to explain it, but there is a reason why there are bookstores at train stations.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I love the feel and the smell of a books, obviously, but I mean, even a magazine smells nice. And if it has nice pictures and a nice design, yeah, I used to, when I traveled a lot by train, buy one just for 2 articles, and the rest was bonus on top.
Yeah, I don't need books because I have an e-reader, so I don't need the haptic and the smell and everything. But I know what you mean. Maybe print was the wrong word. I just meant I hope that written words don't disappear.
No, of course, obviously, yeah, but also even in the category of written journalism or media,
like print media, magazines.
I do think that even old school printed paper things still have a value.
Yeah, sure.
Definitely.
So it would be really sad if they disappeared completely.
There's also nothing wrong with collecting CDs, but I don't do this. Okay. Let's think about the categories that we have in music journalism. First of all, of course, the most popular thing are news. So, do we need news when we have social media? So I think in Germany, Morcor were the first who started putting news in the Instagram story, so that it was quite easy to get a lot of information in a very short time. And when you or when you want to know more about it, you could swipe up and read the news article about it. I think that's a very smart thing. And I have to say that for me, news in magazines or also in online magazines in general are not interesting for me because I get a lot of promo mails. So I am too much a music journalist in this point to be able to say a lot about it because I get all the information before they are printed somewhere or written on the internet somewhere. So yeah, that's a difficult point for me. How about you? Do you still read news on a website or something?
No.
No,
Only social media.
Exactly. My what is it? Insta feed, Facebook feed is my or timeline is my news feed, so to speak.
Mhm.
And yeah, I would call it bandmate news. So that the bands or artists I follow just promote the news by themselves and just do not need the I call it institution as magazine as an institution. They do not need it anymore because they can just publish it themselves.
Mm.
And so yeah, they're just überflüssig. What's the word?
Obsolete.
Obsolete, yeah. So the magazines just become somehow obsolete, I would say.
Yeah.
Kiki, what do you think?
Yes, I agree. I don't visit a specific site to get informed. I also don't seek music news actively. I do, though. What I do sometimes is if I get some gossip, so to speak, or I see something or I hear from somewhere from friends, for example, maybe that something has happened. Let's say band split, scandal, that kind of thing. I do go to Blabbermouth to check.
Mm.
But otherwise, I think the news reaches us on themselves by
Yes.
themselves. Yeah.
When we started Metal and High Heels, we also agreed very quickly on that we don't post any news, or that we at least don't post news on our website itself. It's a different thing when you share news on Facebook that the band published, but one of the reasons obviously was that we started with only the two of us, and it's impossible for two people, if it's not the day job, to write down all this news. But I also think in former times, before bands published so much themselves, people really got on these pages or even made them the starter page in their browser to get the news. But nowadays, yeah, as you said, I hardly ever read something in a magazine that I didn't know before.
Yes. I think we decided that as well because news are pretty short lived.
Mhm.
So, what it's in the name, right? What is news will not be news anymore.
News is notable events, weather, and sports.
Ooh.
That's the meaning of news. So
what?
It's wrong when we say news in a way because we don't talk about weather and sports.
Oh, should we? It's a blizzard outside. Well, not really, but it has snowed a lot. Today is February 7th, 2021. We are having some kind of big cold wave here in Germany, and it's gonna be into the minus degrees for the first time this year, for the whole next 2 weeks apparently. And sports.
Yes, and because of the weather, my favorite soccer club, Werder Bremen, cannot play today. So that's the sport news.
And we're done.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Bye-bye.
for the listening to the news part of our podcast. I think when, I don't know if they still do, but if you have a news category in a music magazine that's a website, or even worse, if it's a printed magazine, right? Everything that's news now, or that is something that has just happened in 2 days, everybody will know, and or it will be so old and irrelevant that nobody will care. So it was actually pretty obvious for us not to fill something with words that everybody can read elsewhere, and that will be there for longer than it's actually relevant.
So to sum it up, we agree on news are not necessary anymore in magazines. I have a completely different opinion regarding reviews, but before I tell what I think about it, Steffi, what do you think about reviews? Do people still need reviews now that they can stream everything on Spotify and other platforms?
I don't know if people need it, but I can imagine that people still would like to read reviews, or better said, as my personal opinion, I still like, or I do read reviews, because it's very interesting for me to, or if I, okay, for example, I found a new band on Spotify with a new album, and I just realized, oh, that was released just 2 months ago. Okay, come on, let's go to, I'm often on metal.de. That's my favorite website for metal stuff. And okay, yeah, let's check out what they do right about it. And yeah, I just want to get an idea. I want to read an opinion of another human being about this album. And yeah, that's for it's not about exchanging thoughts, because there's no exchange, but I want to consume someone else's thoughts about the album I'm listening to. Yeah, also grab some background information, for example, who is this band, and often there's a short history written down in the review. And I like that a lot, because yeah, entertainment, that's for me. And yeah, that's, and especially I think it's for me interesting if I have no people surrounding me to discuss the music. If I have don't know, if I discover the album with a friend together, it's just of course we can discuss it directly and on time. But if that's not given, and it's very often not given, or it's very rare that I have a friend I can discuss with. I have no friends. Okay, joke. No, no, everything's fine. Yeah, I just want to know what other people think about it. That's my point. That's why I'm interested in it, to get another opinion. Yep.
I might have a weird and controversial opinion. No.
Go for it.
I was never a big reader of reviews, but I loved writing them. So please, people, read my reviews. No, not that I write any anymore. I think there is something very beautiful about trying to describe something to somebody else that is trying to describe art or music. Yeah, let's put it like that. Trying to describe something that impacts your emotions, and maybe you can't really explain logically or describe sometimes with words the impact that it's having on myself, for example. So I think I read reviews always in research for my own. Also because I was curious how other people would put into words what I was listening to. So I do think that there is, I do relate to what you said, Steffi, as well. I like reviews where I feel identified with that, or sometimes I find myself reading or listening to opinions and discussing with my screen.
Yeah.
Like, what?
What are you talking about?
That's
About.
not true.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah, exactly.
That's fun.
So yeah, I still do like them. I do think we need them. In terms of streaming, that's a very interesting caveat or clarification too, because usually we would read, as we were saying, right? We would read or listen to a review before we went and bought the record. And nowadays we can just wait and listen ourselves and then decide, or just keep streaming it. I think that's also one of the reasons why we haven't really, or I think we've rarely reviewed a record that has already been released.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a difficult one.
Exactly. I think it's just the reason why people read reviews just changed a little bit. So as you already mentioned, before there were streaming services, you read the review to get to know, okay, should I buy this CD or should I spend these 10, 20 euros for a new record? And nowadays it's more like, okay, I'm curious about the opinion of someone else. Yeah, just the reason changed.
For me, I have I have several thoughts on that. It also depends on if I know the band or did I review the album myself. So in general, I like to read reviews about bands that I find interesting but don't know so much yet. Then I also get some information and I also get some thoughts or some inputs on the album. And then I might say, okay, I will put them in my Apple Music account and listen to the album. When I reviewed the album myself, then I also like to read what other people think about it. So to compare my opinion to others, that's also what you said, Steffi. And when I like a band a lot and they release an album that I don't write a review for, so that I don't have the promo copy myself before, then I like to read what the album will sound like by people who already listened to it. So as you said, Kiki, I don't see a point in reviewing albums that have been out for quite a while. So yeah, maybe some people might get interested in the band because of the review then, but I think a review should be out before the album comes out. So for the fans out there who are not able to listen to the album in total before it is released, so that they can get an impression of how it sounds. I think that's a cool thing, and as I said, also to discover new bands. So I don't think that reviews are obsolete because, yeah, we have this Spotify top 30 songs or something. So Spotify and also YouTube know what music you are listening to, and they give you input as well. But I also found a couple of bands because of reviews that I like to listen to now. So it's good to have input from a lot of sides here.
Yes. I was just thinking that in the past year, I discovered a lot of new bands because of people, because of friends who recommended that to me. So we are your friends who are recommending music to you, dear listeners.
Yeah, kind of.
You can think of us like that.
Yeah, they also enjoy our mini-sodes where what we do there is a kind of audio review. So, yeah. Okay, next topic, live reviews.
Live reports, yeah.
Ugh. They are obsolete. Sorry.
For Steffi, they are obsolete, okay. I think a lot of people like to read the report of concerts that they have been on to get someone else's retrospect, yeah. Or sometimes when you maybe already have a ticket for the tour, or if you think about going, then that might also be interesting. I, in general, like to read live reports of bands that I really like, so my favorite bands. But I don't read a lot of live reports, to be honest. So I wouldn't say they're obsolete like Steffi does, but they're not so important. And I also know from the past when I was writing a lot of live reports that people mostly like to see the pictures that my photographers did. So they didn't necessarily read, they watched looked at the pictures.
That's correct. And if you combine the live report with the photos, if you say that's one thing with two different parts, the chapters, then they're not obsolete anymore. I won't say that. But for me, this text itself, the report itself, was always only that who played, where played, when played, whatever, just writing down the facts and a little bit about atmosphere, the crowd, whatever, live performance, that's it. But the main focus is always on the photos. What? The main focus is on the photos. That's a weird sentence.
But it's correct.
I mean, I personally would read live reports when I couldn't attend an event, when I couldn't go to a concert and wanted to know what happened, more or less. And I didn't really like the kind of report that Steffi was just describing. Like, if it's something completely cold and neutral, like, they went on stage at 8, they played this and this and that, and bye-bye. But I don't think many live reports are like that. Most of the live reports are, like you were saying in the beginning, Steffi, like kind of fangirling out. The band came out on stage and they were already amazing. The way they walked onto the stage impressed me. I think, and again, I have to think to what I like to write as a live report. I want to share my experience, and for me, that's also, once again, a lot about emotions and what I'm feeling, what the show and the atmosphere is making me feel, and how everybody around me is feeling it with me at the same time, is experiencing this at the same time. The last live report I read was by Morcor.de, the German site, and it was last year, about the Trivium event. We linked it in the podcast episode where we talked about live streaming events and concerts or live music in our pandemic times. And it was just, so I probably told this story back then as well. It was a very well written article describing how this journalist watched from the comfort of his own home, watched this concert and felt it as a community experience, a global community experience, with all of the other 9,000 Trivium fans who bought tickets to an online live streaming event. So, as you can see, one of the most or one of the live reports that made a biggest impression on myself wasn't even a real IRL concert. And it's because it was so well written that it really made me want to have been there. It really made me feel like I missed something for sure, and like this person had such an incredible experience that it was so worth reading.
I understand you, but I think that's also a point maybe why I do not like it, especially that feeling that you described. If I getting sad during reading or while reading, because I couldn't been there, it's just oh, sad, I missed it. And I don't know, for me it's I don't know, I feel a little bit strange. But if I think a little bit longer about it, I also do not like traveling reports, for example. If people tell you the journey across the Sahara, whatever. Also, I'm not so much into it because it's I don't know how to describe. Maybe it's this sad missing out feeling.
Mhm.
Yeah, FOMO. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Shall we just, or my opinion on grades? I hope that's the right word. When you rate an album with 1 up
wait.
to 10 points or something.
Rating, yeah.
Pia, wait.
Yes.
I missed the point.
Okay.
No, I just another point of the live reviews came up into my mind. This emotional side is also, or maybe I think, or I noticed 1 or 2 years ago that was my first concert or festival where I didn't write a text, a report about it. And so I started writing with the first concert I went to. And yeah, so maybe that's also a point. So it got somehow negative for me because there were a long time no concert without just enjoying it. It
Mhm.
was always this 1 maybe 2 hours typing text after that event. And maybe that was also a little bit too much in the retro perspective that I did that. Because just enjoying the show, enjoying the feeling, and do not thinking about, okay, what do I have to write later in the evening or maybe next morning if memory is still fresh. And yeah, after some time, it's getting annoying. And yeah, I just want to enjoy the show itself or the event, festival also itself, and not always have to type about what's happening. How do I feel? How the people around me seems like to feel. Yeah. Okay. Point.
And it's also difficult to snap out of that habit, so to speak. I also had that feeling, I think, when I noticed sometimes, I'm analyzing too much, and this time I don't have to report about this,
Yeah.
so I can chill. It was something I had to do consciously as well. Yes.
Yeah, and
Okay.
that's exhausting after some time. And it's your free time. You can just or should just enjoy it sometimes without thinking.
True.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
What do you think about rating albums?
Rating albums.
I like.
Really?
Yeah, you're surprised.
Yes.
Because I like numbers.
That's a good answer.
No, for me it's always just the review in a nutshell. If I do not want to read the wall of text, just scrolling down to the number, to the grade, and then I know, yep, okay, it's good, it's not so good, it's bad, it's very bad. It's perfect. And yeah, so it's easy.
It's also kind of summary. So
Yeah.
if
Right.
I know, or most of the time you also get the information about the genre. And if there is a review somewhere and it says this band plays post-hardcore and it has 10 out of 10 points, then I will read it, definitely. Because then I want to know more about the band, about the album, so that maybe I discover something new that I would like, or that I would like listening to as well.
Exactly, and also for the magazine itself, I think it's very practical, praktisch.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, I think also for the magazine itself, it's quite practical if you have tons of reviews, like on the bigger ones. Yeah, in my mind is once again metal.de, and there are the best reviews presented separately, so to speak. Also, you can see the best album outcomes in the last month or last 2 months, whatever. Yeah, just to sort the many reviews. I think it's a good tool.
That surprises me actually, because why did we never do it?
I think because you didn't want to.
Okay.
And I think because we said we just want to write about things we like.
Anyways, yes.
And
Good
so
point.
if
So
we
everything
have
would have been upwards of 8.
exactly maybe 7, but not less. So if there's less than 7, we won't write a review. We won't make ourselves the work to write it down.
Yeah, true. I think that's the point, because we could have said, okay, we could have made 3 points, 1, 2, 3. 3 is very good, 2 is okay, and 1 is we did expect more, but it's still a cool album. But people would have been mistaken for the 1-point albums and might think they are not good. But as Steffi said, we wouldn't have written this review if we thought the album was bad. I think that's the main reason why we didn't do it.
Yeah. For me, it goes back to trying to be objective. I think a grade should be at least somewhat objective, and an opinion to put numbers to an opinion feels kind of weird to me.
I understand, but what I do, even if I write a review about something that I don't like, then I try to also think about, are the musicians good, or are there good song ideas and stuff like this? And I will also I will give extra points for this. But what we do, for example, at Power Metal DE is that we have an explanation what the grades mean. And they say that if you rate 1 up to 3 points out of 10, then it's a very bad album. 4 up to 5 or something is a very boring album. So there you have this opinion again, or the rate is connected to the opinion of the writer. But I don't know how other magazines do this, if they have something like this as well.
Yeah. Still weird.
Okay, how about interviews? Do people still want interviews when there is social media, for example, with the Q&A stuff that bands do by themselves? What do you think, Kiki?
I don't know if people still want them, but I still want them. I think I have watched several Q&A videos, live streams, etc. I think journalists pose very different questions than fans. And if I think again about what we do or what I do think that as far as I am a fangirl, being totally starstruck and trying to ask an intelligent question, I at least put in that effort. I'm not asking things like, when are you going to play in my city? or the same old questions that people have been asking all the time. I think that is not even an opinion. A lot of bands and musicians have thanked us and told us that they were actually that they had fun during our interviews because they don't get the questions that we ask so often. More so when we have been asking about sexism, about mental health, about politics, and other different topics that maybe not all music magazines cover. So I, of course, from that side, I want to keep making interviews. And on the other side, I'm also always interested about what other journalists will ask and what other people will ask. And also in part as part of our research to not ask the same questions. And because I think it's also good for the listeners or for the consumers of our medium to get different insights, to not get the same information over and over again, but to learn something new about this human being that is making something that you like, which is art or music.
I think so too. And I watched a couple of Q&A stuff that one of my favorite bands did recently because they just released a new album. And there was only one question from the fans that I thought, okay, that's a cool question. I should ask that in one of my next interviews. And that was, which song was the most difficult to play or to record? And I thought, okay, that's a cool question. But the other questions, many people asked how old the musicians are. Or they ask questions where I think, okay, if you would ask Google, you would get the same answer or something like this.
Yeah.
As you said with the concerts, when do you play in my town? Okay, Eventim DE. Type your town in, type the band, and then you will probably get the answer.
Yeah, or the standard answer of, it's difficult to plan a concert, so you should reach out to your local concert place and or booking agent so that they can contact us and we can work something out so that we can go play in your city. So it's not just like you can say, I want you to come to there and we can do it, right? So that's the band's most typical answer. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we are these intellectuals who pose the most intelligent questions ever. We have done probably many songs in the past as well, but
we ask some stupid questions. Yes,
that too.
I also don't want to judge when bands ask this, because bands also do this Q&A to build the community and stuff like this. So I think it's a total different thing when they say we do this Q&A just to get in touch with our fans, and it's not the job of the fans to ask deep questions or to inform themselves a lot about the band before. I was just wondering about some questions that came very often, and I just thought, okay, it's not so difficult to find out the answer.
Yeah, we have asked stuff like, every band is doing this, will you do the same? Right? So all of that happens, but that is the beauty about interviews, and that is why there is still a future for that.
Steffi, what do you think about interviews?
If come back to your categories, I think the interviews are the most important and long-lasting category in this topic. Because so my personal intention is always to get to know the musician behind the music I love. That was my first intention, to do an interview, but also to listen, to watch interviews, because I just asked myself, okay, who's that person who's doing such a great music? So I think it's never will get uninteresting. Oh God, I lost my mind somehow. But also I think in music journalism, or just that's more note to myself, that the expectations should not be so high, because if I think about interviews, especially as an interviewer, my first thought is about political journalism, and that's just something completely else. And there you're trying to ask questions or to get answers to questions the guy you ask won't or would not like to give so freely. You know what I mean?
No.
Oh, shit. Okay, try it again. For me, an interview is more like a battle. okay, now I try to do it in a very hard way of speech. It's more like a battle because the guy who's interviewed, the musician, wants to hide something in a quote, and the interviewer tries to get it. Okay, guy, I want to get informations out of you, and you maybe won't give it to me freely or not so freely, but if I have very smart questions or a very smart strategy to ask my questions, I'll get it.
Mhm.
That's for me how a very good and informative interview could be. But I think that's more in the political journalism and not in music journalism. There's more that fangirl stuff. What I said first, I want to get to know who's the person doing the music and give me some background information, please, about album and recording and whatever music video shooting. Yeah. So I think there's another expectation of interviews out there. And then there are, of course, this fan-made interviews like Q&As, which is lowest level. Yeah, that's it. End of convo.
So you'd say you can't compare this Q&A stuff also with the regular interview. So the regular interview will be out there in the future.
Yeah, hopefully. And also, as I said, more like I think battle is a very hard description for an interview.
Yeah, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. So I do not want to get the information they're already on Wikipedia, for example. I want to get something new out of the person. And that are the best interviews, and I hope these ones will never die. And I don't think so that they will ever die.
We have the last category that I imagine maybe you have more, than we can, of course, also talk about that. The comments or the columns on stuff itself. So not the reviews, but when events happen. For example, Marco Hietala leaves Nightwish. Then there are some music journalists who tell you their opinion about it in a way, or maybe also think about what might happen to the band now, or what's the next thing that might happen. What do you think about that kind of stuff?
It can be interesting, but I think it totally depends on the news. If there's a breaking news, John Schaffer, the Capitol
Iced
stuff,
Earth
and
guy.
yeah, exactly, who was part of that Capitol. It's not a demonstration anymore; it's far beyond that. But yeah,
We know what you mean.
good. I don't think that I can say storm German capital. It sounds weird.
They ran into the building of the government, and yeah, it was a bad thing. We all knew what John Schaffer of Iced Earth did. I think the keywords are enough that everybody in the metal sector knows.
Definitely. And that part was, for example, very interesting because it was, it wasn't only about music, but the real world, so to speak, has a huge political not influence, but aspect, and that was very interesting. And there I liked to read the opinions of other people who are into music stuff.
I remember that I tried to write columns for Metal and High Heels as well. And most of the time, or maybe even always, it felt like doing boulevard stuff. So I didn't really enjoy doing it. And I think it also was not necessary. So, yeah, I don't know.
What do you mean exactly by boulevard stuff?
what I wrote down were my thoughts on events that happened, just out of a theory, so to speak. So when you do an interview, you can ask the people, why did you do this? What will happen next? I don't know. Then you can, or what people in these columns do is answering questions that you should ask the people themselves, but you answer the questions for them by thinking about
Assuming.
the topic. Yes, kind of this. Maybe that, I hope that explains it.
I know what you mean, but I think then it's also a very bad column, because a good one always wants to figure out an event in the future future picture, whatever, in the surrounding. And that's what tries a good column.
Yeah, but still, the better way would be to get the answer by the people involved. You know what I mean?
Yes, but no.
I think this is especially a difficult topic because there are not many big music columns, or at least not in metal. Not that I know of, at least. Maybe something that can be compared to that is, I think I've mentioned this before, it's a YouTube channel in Spanish called Confesiones Female Fronted, I think that's the name. And it's run by this person in Mexico, I think. And she puts out a lot of videos summarizing news in the well, from the women in metal community, so to speak. And that is a lot of gossip there. There is a lot of assumption. There is a lot of stuff that people find actually entertaining. Reading the Facebook comments on her posts is its own tiny hell, because people are so mean to each other and so mean to these musicians who we all, or at least I, admire. But it was kind of entertaining from time to time to, when there were scandals of singers being fired from bands, I would take a peek there and look at what they were saying. This might be a Latin American thing, gossip is fun for us. But of course it can get out of hand. And they even picked up one of our videos one time and I think synchronized it into Spanish, or at least subtitled it into Spanish. It was that one time when Net left Nightwish and we asked the female singers at Metal Female Voices if they would want to get into Nightwish. Mm-hmm. So that was a fun thing. It was actually very fun to ask them. Honestly, it was really fun to ask them and to see how many of them were like, sure, come on, it's Nightwish. It's every girl's dream, more or less. And others were like, if we see how they treat their singers, no thank you. So it was really, really interesting and fun, and we meant nothing by it. There was no mean spirit when we asked that question. We also got some very defensive answers from singers saying that they wouldn't answer that, I think. So, but it was actually pretty interesting. I just don't think it has been done that much. And I do think if there is a good concept behind a column, it could be really cool to read or listen to. And in a way, isn't that what we do as well when we don't interview? Isn't that what we're doing right now? Isn't this a column about music journalism? A column about a column about a column. This is Inception.
Yes, that was another thought that just popped up in my mind. For me, it's a difference if you write a column about a band or something that happened in the band, if you comment on that, or if you write down your thoughts about a specific genre or whatever. Or, yeah, like we do this time that we talk about music journalism, if people still need music journalism, it's also that we talk about our opinion. And I think, or I like this topic driven columns. But as you said, when people try to judge, maybe that's also a hard word here, what other people do in a column like this, I don't know. Nobody forces me to read them, and I guess I very hardly read or watch stuff like this because, yeah, I'd prefer, as I said, in that case, an interview with that person.
All right.
Can you think of other categories?
No, I think you asked this question at the beginning already, and nope, I don't.
Okay. Then I wrote down what music journalists do, and I think Steffi skipped the question from the beginning to the end. How do music journalists work?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's another topic for another podcast episode. Maybe we will get too long because I thought this might be a very short episode, but we are talking about very long time.
Yeah, true. Or maybe, because easy for me, can you name your highlight or motivation to do music journalism?
No.
What?
I think I'm just a very productive person. And I like being communicative in a way. I like to share my opinion with others who want to know about it. And I think that by now I know a lot about this style of music, or I have seen a lot of bands on stage. I interviewed a lot of bands. I listened to a lot of music. I did a lot of reviews and stuff like this. So it's a mixture of, it's fun, first of all. It's also my profession because I work as a journalist. So I also make my money for living with being a journalist. So this combination just makes a lot of sense to me. And I also enjoy being a music journalist, also gives you the opportunity to talk to other music journalists. And I enjoyed that a lot because, as you said, it's another perspective as the fan perspective. So as we already figured out, fans ask totally different questions and they might have another point of view on the bands also. And maybe I'm just a very curious person. I want to learn a lot about things and people. And I can do that as a music journalist. So it gives me the opportunity to talk to the musicians and to get information that I maybe wouldn't get as a fan. So maybe that's it. I want to know. For me, it's not enough to just be a fan. Maybe that's the answer. I want to interact somehow. Yeah, and to maybe also explain, because journalism is often explaining difficult things with words that are easier to understand. So it's also kind of making a connection between musicians and fans.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I agree, especially with the last part. For me, it's just a very selfish motivation. I am very curious. I like asking questions, and so it just makes sense. I like that I have that I get to do that. That I am fortunate enough to be able to talk to my favorite artists from time to time and ask them the questions that I have in my head, and that maybe other people will want to know as well. And that would be kind of what's fun about interviews, or why I enjoy interviewing bands. But yeah, it's also, I think I said that about the rest as well. Explaining or putting into words what I feel when I listen to music or when I am at a concert is something really nice, but it's part of my personality as well. Like, I like expressing feelings and expressing thoughts, and yeah, it's just really nice, and I'm very grateful to be able to or to have a place where I can put all of those, and yeah, to good work, maybe. Or maybe not, or at least just a place to put them out there, to make them leave my system, because that makes me happy.
Agree. Steffi, how about you? I already read your answer.
Yeah, but you both told your motivation. I wrote down my highlight. I think I shall also explain my motivation now.
But tell us about your highlight first.
Oh, my highlight is quite easy. It's great being on a festival with a press pass. That's
true.
Yeah. So you are just kind of VIP. That's nice. Yeah. The
You
motivation.
see places that other people don't see. I
Yeah,
remember my interview in
exactly.
the backstage of Duska Festival. So
Exactly.
there was a place behind the backstage, and we did the interview with the CEO there. And I was in there, and I was like, oh, wow, we're in the backstage of the backstage now. And the CEO looked at me, yeah, that describes it quite well.
Yeah, that's great. There, being in tour buses, that's also very fascinating. If you have an
Yeah,
interview
true.
into a tour bus, that's a whoa, okay, that's somehow very, very private place for you right now, while being
I'm
on
in your
tour.
bedroom now.
Exactly. I'm in your bedroom. Is that okay? But yeah, definitely fun and exciting. Um, yeah. Oh, and the cocktails and the toilets backstage, also amazing on festivals. Just another point.
You don't have to wait so long to get your beer.
Exactly. Have more
Or just having a space to be able to sit quietly for a minute in the turmoil of a big festival. That
And
is
to
true.
recharge your smartphone.
That
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, you can relax. Yeah. But back to motivation. Yeah, but I have nothing more to add than you already said. It's a good mixture, I think, about the points you already mentioned. Yeah, asking um, questions to the musicians is always amazing, and yeah, I feel kind of yeah, being an honor to write down my thoughts, and I can ask the um, people themselves about it.
Mhm.
That's yeah, feeling honored about that. That's possible, and yeah, it's good way to sharing my thoughts about music, because yeah, I just love it. It's just always feels like I'm constantly listening to music all day long. And of course, I think about it, and I need to put how, Kiki, you had such a beautiful sentence, put the thought out of the system and getting free of it. And that's perfect to do it in such a way.
Mm. And it's also cool, even when we started, we already had this kind of community with the Metal Female Voices Fest, and it's also kind of giving something back to the community or doing it also for the community. Because as long as there
Yes.
are people out there listening to this podcast, being entertained by us, it makes sense what we do, I guess. At least for some people.
Oh, yeah, another motivation at the beginning that I found some very small bands, and I thought, okay, why are so underrated and they need to get pushed? And so somehow when I got the opportunity to do it myself, to push them, if I write a good review about the album and publish it on the website, yeah, maybe. And if there are just 20 people who read the review and brought or listened to the album afterwards, then it's enough. I did my thing, and I'm happy with it.
That's a good point to conclude this podcast. So we should all name a band that people out there should pay more attention to. You look at me like, what?
Hell, I wasn't prepared for this.
I know.
Is this a trivia show?
First band that pops up in your mind.
Give me 10 minutes.
I mean, my first thought is obviously As Everything Unfolds, because we just had that really cool interview, which will be out exactly a month from today, or when this episode drops out, on March 9th. Yeah, so stay tuned, everybody, because we talked to Charlie Rolfe from As Everything Unfolds, which is, in my eyes, in fact, a very interesting newcomer who we should keep an eye out for.
Yes, that's true. I can mention the band Torments from Stockholm, Sweden. It's a very small band. They only released one EP up until now, but really good music. The musicians have a lot of fun on stage. And even this EP that they put out is so good music-wise. And also they did stuff that I didn't expect a band to do on a debut EP. So really cool band. And I think if they continue doing music, they might be the next big thing that comes from Sweden. So keep an eye on them.
Ooh.
No, the next big thing from Sweden is Orbit Culture.
Okay, Orbit Culture and then Torments. I think Orbit Culture are bigger.
I think Orbit Culture is not the best pick because they're somehow hyped, or the last album is a little bit hyped already. Sojourner is also a very good band, and I think they're a little bit more in a niche. So I would like to name this one.
Great.
All right.
End of
That's it.
story.
Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Yes, thank you for listening. I think those who listen to this episode already know where to find us on social media and stuff like this. So, yeah, thank you and hear you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.